Start at 4 verse 22.
It's the book of Galatians, chapter 4, verse 22.
And read a little fast. Go ahead.
For it is written that Abraham had two sons.
Right, Abraham had two sons, which was Isaac and Ishmael. All right, technically he had what was it, 7, 8, 9? He had 9 sons. Technically he had 9 sons. And he had 9 sons. All right, but he had 7 sons by his concubine Keturah, and then he had his firstborn son, which was Ishmael, his secondborn son, which was Isaac. Right?
Where can that be found?
That's in the book of Genesis.
Okay, book of Genesis.
Yeah.
I didn't know he had.
Yeah.
His wife was Sarah, right?
His wife was Sarah Khan. That's in let me see, Genesis
25:1. Then again Abraham took a wife, and her name was Keturah. And she bare him Zimran, and Jokshan, and Medan, and Median, and Ishbak, and Shua. And Jokshan begat Sheba.
Right. Go ahead.
And Dedan.
Right, Dedan. So it says right, that's it. So basically that's showing you he had 7 sons by Keturah. Okay. But his first 2 sons was Ishmael and Isaac. All right. So now let's go back to Galatians.
It's the book of Galatians, chapter 4, verse 22. For it is written that Abraham had 2 sons.
The main 2 sons, which was Ishmael and Isaac. And remember, their mothers was also doing what? They were struggling with each other. They were beefing with each other. Right?
That's true.
Go ahead.
The one by a bondmaid and the other by a free woman.
Right. The bondmaid was Hagar. She was the bondmaid. And the free woman was Sarah. Go ahead.
Verse 23. But he who was of the bondwoman was born after the flesh.
Right. They was born after the flesh. And this is twofold. And this is really why the Muslims hate Paul. This is the real reason why. Because he goes at Hagar. All right. It says the bond, right? What verse was that?
23.
23 says, but he who was of the bondwoman was born after the flesh. Now this is going into the law. All right. This is also referring to the law. Okay. Go ahead.
But he of the free woman was by promise.
But by promise. See, us in the truth, meaning how are we getting the kingdom? How are we going to receive deliverance? Not by the law, not by the bondwoman, but by promise. Right? We was foreordained for the kingdom. Right? Does that mean that we're not supposed to keep the law? No. We're supposed to keep the law to the best of our ability within this kingdom. You understand? But the law doesn't give us salvation. I don't give a damn if you keep there's 313 laws in the book. If you follow every last one of them perfectly and never break one from the time you was born, that don't mean you're going to make it into the kingdom of heaven. This is what the Jews in the ancient world, the Israelites, this is what they believe. And then come to find out, they couldn't get it. The only way we're going to get in the kingdom is through Yahweh Shah. You know? And being part of the elect. Go ahead.
Verse 24. Which things are an allegory.
Right, it's an allegory. And that's the same thing was going on with Leah and Rachel. It's an allegory. When you read the story, it's an allegory. Right? The thing what happening with Hannah and Peninnah is an allegory.
So what if somebody says you breaking that down and it says it's an allegory, and somebody says, so then it's not true then?
No, it's true. It's spiritually true. You got to look at it in the spirit. See, there's things in the scriptures where you have to open your mind's eye. You have to see it in the scriptural point of view. You know what I'm saying? There's many things in the scriptures that if you don't place yourself within the scriptures, you will never get it. You know, the Bible is not a book that you read like you read in a novel. It's a book that you have to put yourself within the pages of the book.
Right.
You understand? Go ahead.
It says, which things are an allegory, for these are the two covenants.
Right. It's an allegory. See, he was comparing what was going on between Rachel, right? No, Sarah and Hannah. He was comparing that as an what was happening between them was symbolic of the two covenants. Go ahead.
For one, it says, Salakia, for these are the two covenants. The one from the Mount Sinai, which gendereth to bondage, which is Hagar.
Right, which is Hagar. So in other words, a covenant, what does the word covenant mean?
It means, like a bond,
That's good. A bond, it means an agreement. A contract. That's what it means. It means an agreement or a contract. So what was the contract in Mount Sinai? The contract was the law. That was the covenant. You understand? This is your covenant. Moses gave you the covenant. He gave you the law.
Right.
Keep this law and you will be blessed.
Right.
Break this law and you're going to be cursed. That was the covenant in Mount Sinai. But, read on.
Says, bondage, verse 25. For this Hagar is Mount Sinai in Arabia.
In Arabia, read.
And answereth to Jerusalem, which now is, and is in bondage with her children.
Right, go ahead.
But Jerusalem, which is above, is free, which is the mother of us all.
Again, this is Paul's getting deep, right? So he's saying, this is what he's saying, right? I'll read above it again. It says, but, verse 23, it says, but he who is of the bondwoman was born after the flesh. See, in other words, what he's saying is, if you trusting in the Lord and you being fleshly, you're not being spiritual. Because you trusting that the law is going to get you the kingdom, right? So now he's saying, but he of the free woman was by promise. See, you have to be of the free woman. Meaning, what does that mean? Meaning that's going into that promise. You was promised the kingdom. It says, which things are in allegory, meaning a symbolism within the stories. For these are the two covenants, the two agreements, the two contracts. The one from the Mount Sinai, which genereth to bondage, which is Hagar. Right? It says, and this Hagar is Mount Sinai in Arabia, and answereth to Jerusalem, which now is and is in bondage with her children. Go ahead, verse 26.
Verse 26. But Jerusalem, which is above, is free, which is the mother of us all.
So now check it. What is he telling them? First of all, he's letting you know Jerusalem is the motherland. Jerusalem is the place you pray to. Again, this is why the Muslims hate Paul. Because what do they say? They say Mecca is where you pray to. Right? But Paul telling you, no, Jerusalem is the place. But Jerusalem, which is above, meaning it's above all other lands. It's the most holiest land on the planet. It says, but Jerusalem, which is above, is free. It was, again, meaning it's going back to the promise, which is the mother of us all. Read on.
Verse 27. For it is written, rejoice thou barren that bearest not.
Right, that was Sarah. Rejoice thou barren that bearest not. Again, when you go into what we read earlier, dealing with them 12 tribes, and there's the symbol, the allegory and the symbolism between Rachel and Leah, is talking about the same thing, right? It says, for it is written, rejoice thou barren that bearest not. Go ahead.
Which thou bearest that bearest not.
Break
forth and cry.
Right. It says break forth and cry. So it's talking to the chosen, to the elect. Right? It says, for it is written, rejoice thou barren that bearest not. Break forth and cry. thou that travailest not. Go ahead.
For the desolate has many more children than she which has an husband.
Right. That's going into Leah. Excuse me.
The other handmaid, the last one, right?
No, it's going into what's her name? It's talking about Hannah. I mean, not Hannah, Salaki. Hagar. Right, Hagar. Right? It says, but thou, so it says, for it is written, rejoice thou barren. The barren was, again, it's talking about Hannah. It's talking about Rachel. It's talking about Sarah. That bearest not. Break forth and cry, thou that travailest not. It's talking about them not being able to bear children. Right? For the desolate, meaning the desolate was the sisters that couldn't have no children. Eventually they ended up having children. But again, this was all an allegory. It was parabolic talk. It was prophecy within these stories. Thou that travailest not, for the desolate hath many more children than she which hath an husband. Meaning what? The desolate, right? Meaning is referring to the elect. Right? That's what it's saying. We have many more children, meaning we gonna be more blessed, right, than the rest of them. Go ahead.
Come. Verse 28. Now we, brethren, as Isaac was,
right. It says now we, brethren, as Isaac was. Go ahead.
Are the children of promise.
We're the children of promise, just like Isaac. See, Isaac came from what? The woman that was barren.
Yeah.
He came from the woman that was barren. So we're just like Isaac was. We're children of the promise. Isaac was what? Promise. The angel came to Abraham and Sarah, right, in their old age. Yeah, but you see how that parallels with it, right? So now, let me see if I want to read another one. Galatians.
So it shows you, and also you get out of this is why we're hated so much by the other nations, and why it's important for us to follow the little statutes and commandments.
Right.
And believe in Yahushua.
Right.
That's true.
Read 3 verse 16.
In Galatians?
Come. Because Paul was basically, again, he was basically teaching. See, our people was trusting in the law that the law was going to get them the kingdom.
Right.
That they could law themselves into the kingdom of heaven.
Right.
The more laws they kept, the greater their chances was in getting into the kingdom. But Paul's letting you know, like, it's not about that. It's not about, he wasn't saying that we not to keep the law. That's where the Christians get it confused at.
Right.
He wasn't saying that at all. What he was saying was, you have to have Yahweh Shai. You can't say, well, I don't, like, you got these Old Testament dudes, all they want to deal with the Old Testament. They're not going to get the kingdom. I don't care how much Old Testament you want to study. If you don't believe in Yahweh Shai, you ain't getting the kingdom, man. I don't care how many laws you follow.
That's right.
Well, I'm just an Old Testament Israelite. I'm following all the laws or whatever. But you don't believe in Yahweh Shai, you never going to get the kingdom.
That's true.
All right? Right. Read 3 verse 16.
It's the book of Galatians, chapter 3, verse 16.
And I hear brothers break this down wrong on the internet and YouTube a lot. They break it down wrong. Go ahead.
Now to Abraham and his seed where the promise is made.
Right, this is talking about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We're the seed of Abraham. Go ahead.
He saith not into seeds as of many.
Right, he didn't give the promises. The promises wasn't given to all his sons.
Right.
It was given to that line, the line of Isaac. It was Abraham, then it was given to Isaac, and then Isaac gave the promise to Jacob. And then Jacob gave the promise to his 12 sons, which became the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. There was a promise that was given to Abraham. Right? This is what it's talking about. Let's read on.
But as of one, and to thy seed, which is Christ.
And to thy seed, which is Christ, which is anointed, the anointed one. Who came from that line of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? Yahweh Shai, the anointed. Go ahead.
Verse 17. And this I say, that the covenant that was confirmed before in Yahweh and Christ, the law which was 430 years after.
Stop. It says, now this I say, that the covenant, again, the word covenant means a contract, an agreement. Right? This is what you get the word testament. People say the Old Testament, the New Testament. The Old Covenant, the New Covenant. It's the same thing. It means the same thing. It means a contract or an agreement. Right? It says, and this I say, that the covenant, meaning a contract, that was confirmed before of Yahweh in Yahweh Shai. Now this is going into well, let me not get too deep, right? It says, now this I say, that the covenant that was confirmed before of Yahweh in Yahweh Shai, the law. What covenant was that it's talking about? It's talking about the covenant of the law. That's the Mount Sinai. That's what he was talking about the bondage, right? It says, which was 430 years after. Meaning 430 years after what?
Slave.
No, 430 years after the promise that was given to Abraham. Abraham was given a promise. 430 years later, we was given what? The covenant of the law, the agreement to keep the law. Right? Cannot disannul. What can it disannul?
Can't go away.
No, it can't disannul.
You can't disannul the law.
Go against.
No, it's not the law.
The covenant.
Can't.
Which covenant?
The old, or the covenant with Abraham.
Right, which was what? A promise.
Yeah, the promise.
Right, it says, right, let's read it again from 16. It says, now to Abraham and his seed were the promises made. He made a promise with Abraham, which was a covenant, a contract, an agreement. Right? He saith not into seed as many, but as of one, into thy seed, which is Christ, Yahweh Shai. And this I say, that the covenant, there was another covenant, another agreement that was confirmed before of Yahweh in Yahweh Shai, the law. When were we given the laws? Which was 430 years after. It was 430 years after the promise or the covenant that was given unto Abraham. Cannot disannul. Means what? Meaning Abraham was given a promise that his seed will receive the kingdom. 430 years later, we was given another covenant through Moses that said, keep this law. Right? But that covenant that was given to us through Moses, it cannot disannul the covenant that was given to us through with Abraham. It can't do away with it.
Right, can't.
So basically, the Most High made a covenant, said, look, Abraham, no matter what happens, you're going to be good with me. You understand? No matter what goes down, you're going to be my chosen people. You are the children of the kingdom of heaven.
Good damn one. That's powerful.
Now, he came with what they call, like, in other words, basically, it was like an amendment. It was he added to it, right? Said, okay, now, you Israelites, y'all have, this is the promise, but now you have to keep this law.
Right.
But there's stipulations in this law. If you break it, I'm gonna jack you up, so forth and so on. You're gonna go into captivity.
Right.
But even though you broke all these laws, went the hell off,
Right.
I cannot destroy you.
Right.
Why?
Because of the promise.
Because of the promise I gave to Abraham.
Dang. Ain't that something? That's wow. That's like.
So now, this is what Paul meant when he was saying all that. He wasn't saying, look, you ain't supposed to keep the law, don't keep the law. No, he wasn't teaching that. See, what brothers and what people don't understand was, Paul was a doctor of the law. Paul was taught by Gamaliel. he would have eventually rose up in the ranks and been the top Pharisee and, you know, the top Pharisee, the top dog, man. He was Gamaliel's top student.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He was Gamaliel's right hand. Like, when you saw Gamaliel, you saw Saul. He was known as Saul at that time. And he kept all the laws. He was all about that law. He taught people the law. You better keep this law, boom, let me show you the law. So when he learned of Yahweh Shai, when he converted unto Yahweh Shai, he was like, look, I'm not going to
It was more than that.
try to break my neck and teach everybody this law.
Right.
I'm going to teach them Yahweh Shai.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's why when you read in the book of Acts,
It was more than
well, they was having a discrepancy about that, him and Barnabas. Because Barnabas wanted to teach the law. Paul like, look, I've been teaching people the law my whole life. I want to teach them Yahweh Shai. Not that he wasn't teaching them the law, but he said, look, we have to teach Yahweh Shai. That was his, he said, look, this is the main priority. We have to teach them Yahweh Shai. And then give them the law. Right? You had Jews. When you read the book of Acts, you had Jews. You had as soon as somebody came into the truth, they wanted to teach them the law. As soon as they accept Yahweh Shai, as soon as they walk in the door, brother, you gotta start growing your beard out. You ain't circumcised. You gotta get circumcised. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You gotta. Basically, you gotta. As soon as you accept, as soon as you baptize, boom, you gotta come up as a super Israelite
Right.
and be keeping all the laws.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Paul said, look, man, you gradually, you know what I'm saying?
Learn it.
Yeah, you gotta. He wasn't teaching against the law,
Right.
but he was like, look, man, y'all putting too much on these brothers, man.
Yeah.
They come into
That's
the
what
truth.
they
You
were
want to
doing,
circumcise them the first day. You know what I'm
That's
saying?
putting-
He wasn't teaching against circumcision, and that's what people get misconstrued, because Paul, I believe it was Timothy, he went and had him circumcised. You know what I'm saying? He told Timothy, yo, you need to go get circumcised.
Right.
Didn't they lay him down? He was the one that they laid down with circumcising?
I'm not sure. I gotta.
Timothy, or it was one of them. It was
Yeah.
Timothy or another dude. One of them dudes. But
But that just shows you that he wasn't teaching against the law. He was just, his priority was, look, we got to teach them Yahweh Shai, and then they'll learn the law. Eventually they'll pick all the law up. That's why when they did have that council, they said within the council, they said, look, they already teach Moses in the synagogues on every Sabbath.
Right.
He said, send them to the synagogue and they'll learn about the law.
Right.
We're going to teach them Yahweh Shai.
Yeah.
That's in the book of Acts. You know? But anyway, let's finish this off. Read verse 17 again.
verse 17. And this I say, that the covenant that was confirmed before of Yahweh and Yahweh Shai, the law which was 430 years after, cannot disannul, that it should make the promise of none effect.
See, it's not going to make the promise of none effect. It's right there. Read on.
Verse 18. For if the inheritance be of the law,
See, if the inheritance, the kingdom, if that be of the law, go ahead,
for if the inheritance be of the law, it is no more promise.
then it's no more a promise. Read.
But Yahweh gave it to Abraham by promise.
See, he gave it to Abraham by promise. So the law cannot disannul the promise, man.
Right. So it's the promise.
It's the promise. It's and the promise goes back to what? The elect.
The covenant with God.
You know what I'm saying? Right. The elect, man. The Most High chose certain brothers,
Right.
certain Israelite men, and made them the elect. He promised these brothers. We don't know who they are. You know, we pray that we are them. You know what I'm saying? But let's go back to Samuel's. We're gonna finish that off. Samuel's, what verse we left off at?
I know, First Samuel, right?
Yeah, 1 Samuel's
17:45.
verse 8.
It's the book of 1 Samuel, chapter 1, verse 8. Then said Elkanah, her husband, to her, Hannah, why weepest thou? And why eatest thou not? And why is thy heart grieved? Am I
Right.
not?
Go ahead.
Am I not better to thee than 10 sons?
Right. So she was mourning this situation that she couldn't have no sons. Right. And again, like I said, that's symbolic unto Israel. It says, why weepest thou? And why eatest thou not? And why is thy heart grieved? So we grieve, we fast, we lose our appetite. Why? Because we want the Most High Yahweh Shai to return. It says, am I not better to thee than 10 sons? Go ahead.
Verse 9. So Hannah rose up after they had eaten in Shiloh, and after they had drunk. Now Eli the priest sat upon a seat by a post of the temple of the Most High. And she was in bitterness of soul, and prayed unto the Most High, and wept sore. Verse 11. And she vowed a vow, and said, O Lord of hosts, if thou wilt indeed look on the affliction of thy handmaid, and remember me, and not forget thy handmaid, but will give unto thy handmaid a man child, then I will give him unto the Lord all the days of his life, and there shall no razor come upon his head.
Now stop. It says, and she vowed a vow, and said, O Yahweh of hosts, if thou wilt indeed look on the affliction of thine handmaid, and remember me. Again, remember, she was symbolic of Israel, of the whole nation. Remember me, and not forget thine handmaid, but will give unto thine handmaid a man child. Right, that's kind of like what we waiting on. We waiting on that man child, Yahweh Shai. You know, when you read in the book of Revelation, the 12th chapter, it talks about that there was a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars, and it says that she gave birth unto a son. Right, that all represent Yahweh Shai. So we waiting for that man child. Right, it says, remember me and not forget thine handmaid, but will give unto thine handmaid a man child, and I will give him unto Yahweh all the days of his life. Right, that's Yahweh Shai. Right, even though this was talking about Samuel, you know what I'm saying, but it was all kind of prophetically speaking about Yahweh Shai, symbolically. Right, it says, then I will give him unto Yahweh all the days of his life, and there shall no razor come upon his head. Right, he was from the day, I believe it was Samson. Right, this happened with Samson, and it happened with Samuel. And I think it was like 3 people or 3 characters in the scriptures that you could read about that they had no razor come upon their head all the days of their life. All right, when like you got cats that grow dreads or whatever, or grow their hair long, talking about they Nazarites. First of all, a Nazarite, right? A Nazarite was only for a certain period of time. It wasn't something that, oh, I'm gonna be a Nazarite, or you got dudes claiming that they Nazarites, but they don't have no end date to being a Nazarite. You know what I'm saying? They don't have no end date where they gonna cut their hair. And you're not supposed to sacrifice, or the sacrifice is done away with anyway. So there's no temple, because that was the like if you like Yahweh Shai was a Nazarite.
You can't eat, you can't drink liquor, and you can't.
Right, you can't
go by dead things.
Right, you can't go by anything dead. You can't you can't eat anything of the vine.
Anything of the vine, right.
And you can't cut your hair. That was the law of a Nazarite.
So Christ had to do that. Yahweh Shai had to do that.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? You had, because they had oaths. They would take oaths, and then they would cut their hair, right? And then they would present it and burn it to the Most High.
Burn it to the Most High. Yeah.
You know, so they would that would be part of their sacrifice. They would cut all their hair off their head.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Take all their hair and burn it to the Most High.
But that was a sacrifice.
That was a sacrifice, and that was.
Didn't have to do that because he was a sacrifice.
Well, he still partook of the law. Remember, he went and they performed sacrifices for him when he was 8 days old. You know what I'm saying? This is before he started his ministry. You know what I'm saying? Before Yahweh Shai started his ministry, he was a Nazarite.
Yeah,
His
he
brother
was a
James
Nazarite.
was a Nazarite.
Yeah.
I think that was the third one, which was James. James was a Nazarite. James never cut his hair from the time he was born to the time he died. You know what I'm saying? He was also a Nazarite from the womb.
Right. Yep.
You know, most likely Yahweh Shai was a Nazarite from the womb. You know what I'm saying? But
Just like
he eventually cut his hair.
yeah.
That's
At the time,
Yahweh Shai. That's why he drank wine after that.
Yeah.
Because after you do the sacrifice, right after you burn your hair, you cut your hair, now you could drink wine.
Yeah.
And that's why he started drinking. That's why he liked to drink.
That's what I'm saying. That's why
Yeah.
I got there drinking like that.
You know, he probably did that like before he was tempted, around 30 years old, before he was tempted, before he was before he had been baptized. You know what I'm saying? Because the scriptures say that he was a Nazarite. You know, he was a Nazarene and also referred to him as a Nazarite. So once you
Nazarene.
a Nazarite and you keep that vow and then you always known as a Nazarite. You know, so you still known as a Nazarite, even though you're not under that vow no more. But anyway, right?
Now, did they all have the spirit of the Lord on them when they had their locks? Because it says Samson, because it says in the book of Judges, it says, and the spirit of the Lord came mightily upon Samson.
Right, Samson was a different breed. You know, the Most High gave him that spirit.
Yeah.
You know, he gave him that spiritual
Like
power, man. Huh?
Was he like a warrior?
Yeah, he was a regular dude, but he was a warrior. He was like a Jack Johnson, man. You know about Jack Johnson?
Oh, yeah,
Jack Johnson's
old powerful.
Yeah, that was like a Samson.
Yeah.
You know, he was like Samson, man, and you know, Samson like them women from them other nations.
Yeah.
Right? You look at Jack Johnson like them Edomite women.
Yeah.
You know, that's what made him go down.
Yeah.
That's the same thing that made Samson go down. He liked them damn Canaanite women.
Yeah.
You know, he liked them Canaanites, man.
Right.
Yeah.
But
He didn't want an Israelite woman.
yeah, he liked them Canaanites, but he was a righteous brother.
Yeah.
You know, he was a righteous brother. The Most High was dealing with him.
Yeah.
But he was like on some other stuff, man.
He was really strong.
Yeah, but he had that spirit. It wasn't just that he had physical strength. He had the spirit of the Lord on him.
Yeah, spirit.
You know. But anyway, let's read on, because I want to finish this out. It's getting kind of late. Go ahead.
Eli answers. What verse we in?
We have verse 11.
Verse 11. And she vowed a vow.
No, verse 12.
12.
We read that.
And it came to pass, so this is the book of 1 Samuel chapter 1 verse 12. And it came to pass as she continued praying before Yahweh that Eli marked her mouth. Now
Meaning he watched her. He watched her mouth. Now, when they was praying, he seen that her mouth was moving, right? So it says, and another thing about her vow. Well, I believe it says it in here. I haven't read this in a while, but I believe it says it in here. But if your wife made a vow, right, a husband could disannul that vow according to the law. So she could make a vow, and if her husband be like, nah, I'm not feeling that. But I believe it's gonna tell you in here. But just in case it don't, but I believe it's gonna say it in this chapter. But maybe we'll get to it. But anyway, it says, and it came to pass as she continued praying before Yahweh that Eli marked her mouth. Meaning everybody was praying, but when the prayers were over, she kept praying. So Eli looked at her like, right? And this is what he thought. Go ahead.
Verse 13. Now Hannah, she spake in her heart. Only her lips moved, but her voice was not heard. Therefore Eli thought she had been drunken.
Right, he thought she'd been drunken. Meaning, he looked at her and like, she going off, man. What's she doing over there? Right? Go ahead.
Verse 14. And Eli said unto her, how long wilt thou be drunken? Put away thy wine from thee. And Hannah answered and said, no, my lord. I am a woman of a sorrowful spirit. I have drunk neither wine nor strong drink, but have poured out my soul before Yahweh. Count not thy handmaid for a daughter of Belial.
Right, so basically, right, it says, but have poured out my soul before Yahweh. So she continued in prayer. Right? It says, and Hannah answered and said, no, my Lord. I am a woman of a sorrowful spirit. I have drunk neither wine nor strong drink, but have poured out my soul before Yahweh. Go ahead. Verse 16.
Verse 16. Count not thine handmaid for a daughter of Belial, for out of the abundance of my complaint and grief I have spoken hereto. Then Eli answered and said, go in peace, and the power of Israel grant thee thy petition that thou hast asked of him.
Right, it says, and Eli answered and said, go in peace. And Yahweh, the power of Israel, grant thee, meaning he will grant thee, thy petition that thou hast asked of him. Go ahead.
And she said, let thy handmaid find grace in thy sight. So the woman went her way and did eat, and her countenance was no more sad.
Right, so what did she have? She had faith, man. Right? When he told her, and he basically told her, and Yahweh, the power of Israel, grant thee thy petition. Meaning he was telling her, yeah, the Most High gonna grant you your petition. He prophesied unto her, grant thee thy petition that thou hast asked of him. And she said, let thine handmaid find grace in thy sight. So the woman went her way and did eat, and her countenance was no more sad. Go ahead.
Verse 19. And they rose up in the morning early and worshipped before Yahweh, and returned and came to their house to Ramah. And Elkanah knew Hannah, his wife, and the Lord remembered her.
Right, meaning she got pregnant. When it said he knew her, meaning, they had sex. Go ahead.
Verse 20. Wherefore it came to pass, when the time was come about after Hannah had conceived, that she bare a son, and called his name Samuel, saying, because I have asked him of the Lord.
Right, it says, wherefore it came to pass, when the time was come about after Hannah had conceived, that she bare a son, and called his name Samuel. It says, saying, because I have asked him of Yahweh. Right? In the precept, let me see what the precept says.
For the name?
Yeah, it says, asked of God. Right. Go ahead.
Verse 21. And the man Elkanah and all his house went up to offer unto Yahweh the yearly sacrifice and his vow.
And his vow. Go to Numbers 30, verse 6.
It's the book of Numbers, chapter 30, verse 6. And if she had at all a husband, when she vowed, or uttered out of her lips, wherewith she bound her soul.
Right, so this is the same. This is what happened with Hannah. So she vowed a vow. Right, so this is where, like I said, I believe it said it,
Right.
that Elkanah, that he accepted the vow. Right, so that's why it says, and the man Elkanah and all his house went up to offer unto Yahweh the yearly sacrifice and his vow. Because her vow became his vow. Because he acknowledged her vow. He said, you know what? I'm with that. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
It says, and then the man Elkanah and all his house.
No, go back to Samuel. Numbers.
Numbers.
Yeah, Numbers.
What's that? 30 and what?
30 verse 6.
Verse 6. And if she 30, okay. Book of Numbers, chapter 30, verse 6. And if she had at all an husband, when she vowed, or uttered out of her lips, wherewith she bound her soul, and her husband heard it, and held his peace at her in the day that he heard it, then her vow shall stand, and her bonds wherewith she bound her soul shall stand.
Right. So if he don't say nothing, if he like, okay, he'd be like, yeah, I'm with that, or right. But if he be like, nah, I'm not with that, then that vow is dead. Like he could cancel her vow. Her, either her husband or her father can do that. Go ahead.
Wow.
Verse 8. But if her husband disallowed her on the day that he heard it, then he shall make her vow which she vowed, and that which she uttered with her lips, wherewith she bound her soul of none effect, and the Lord shall forgive her.
Right. He could make that vow of none effect. He'd be like, nah, I'm going to cancel that vow. And the Most High will forgive her. She don't have to, she's not bound to it. Right? So now you go back to Samuel's 1 verse 21. It says, and the man Elkanah and all his house went up to offer unto Yahweh the yearly sacrifice and his vow, showing you that he accepted her vow. Go ahead, verse 22.
Verse 22. But Hannah went not up, for she said unto her husband, I will not go up until the child be weaned, and then I will bring him, that he may appear before Yahweh, and there abide forever.
Right. So she said, let me wean him. And I believe they was weaned for, what was it, 4 years? In the Apocrypha, it tells you that in the Apocrypha.
What does wean mean? Breastfeed?
Breastfed.
Damn, 4 years.
I believe it was it 4 years? Y'all know that scripture? About the sister with the 7 sons? I believe it's in Maccabees. 7 verse 27.
Okay, Second Maccabees 7, chapter 7, verse 27. But she, bowing herself toward him, laughing the cruel tyrant to scorn, spake in her country language on this manner. O my son, have pity upon me that bare thee 9 months in my womb, and gave thee suck 3 years, and nourished thee, and brought thee up into this age, and endured the troubles of education.
Right. So she breastfed him for 3 years. Alright. So that's how long they will wean their sons, right? So it says go back to Samuel's 1, 1 Samuel's 1 and
Yeah, 23, something like that. 23.
23.
Yeah. 23. This is the book of 1 Samuel, chapter 1, verse 23. And Elkanah, her husband, said unto her, do what seemeth thee good. Tarry until thou have weaned him. Only Yahweh establish his word. So the woman abode and gave her son suck until she weaned him.
Right, which is about 3 years. Right?
Go
ahead.
Verse 24. And when she had weaned him, she took him up with her, with 3 bullocks, and 1 ephah of flour, and a bowl of wine, and brought him unto the house of Yahweh in Shiloh, and the child was young.
Right, the child was young. She was about 3 years old, 4 years old. Go ahead.
Verse 25. And they slew a bullock, and brought the child to Eli. And she said, O my Lord, as thy soul liveth, my Lord, I am the woman that stood by thee here, praying unto Yahweh.
Go ahead.
For this child I prayed, and Yahweh has given me my petition which I asked for him. Therefore also have I lent him to Yahweh. As long as he liveth, he shall be lent to Yahweh.
Right, so she offered him to the Most High. Go ahead.
And he worshipped the Lord there.
Right, it says, therefore also I have lent him to Yahweh. As long as he liveth, he shall be lent to Yahweh. And he, this is speaking of Elkanah, worship Yahweh there. So he worshiped the Most High, Elkanah, right? And that, like I said, that was all part of that vow. But that's it. Well, I just wanted to read that chapter. We'll close up with that. Right. And then you could read, y'all also could read chapter 2. You could read that on your own. Matter of fact, now read 2 and 1. I'm just gonna read a little bit. But this was the prayer that she threw up after that.
This is 1 Samuel chapter 2, verse 1. And Hannah prayed and said, my heart rejoices in Yahweh. My horn is exalted in Yahweh.
Right, my horn. And that's going back to when you read when you read John, it talks about the horn of salvation has been given unto us. That was referring to Yahweh Shai. Right? It says, And Hannah prayed and said, my heart rejoiceth in Yahweh. My horn is exalted in Yahweh. My mouth is enlarged over mine enemies, because I rejoice in thy salvation. Who was her enemy? It was really her sister wife. That's what she was referring to. But like I said, it's spiritually talking about Israel and the other nations. Right? Go ahead, verse 2.
Verse 2. There is none holy as Yahweh, for there is none beside thee. Neither is there any rock like our Yahweh. Talk no more so exceedingly proudly.
Right, that's Esau and the other nations. Go ahead.
Let not arrogancy come out of your mouth.
Right, because who was she referring to? She was referring to her sister wife. But it was symbolic of Esau and the other nations. You see that, right? Talk no more exceedingly proudly. Let not arrogancy come out of thy mouth. It says, for Yahweh is the God of knowledge, and by him actions are weighed. So we'll just close with that. But that's just showing you how, when you listen to her, when you read her prayer, you'll see how it's paralleling, you know what I'm saying? And you see where she's coming from. All right? But we'll just close up with that.
Praise.
Yeah, so I hope y'all got something getting out of this lesson, man.
Indeed.
Got a lot from it.
Yeah.
View.
Definitely filled the hunger.
But like I said, you just when you study, you always gotta
you have to go over it too. Like,
yeah.
On your own too.
Right.
That's what I try to do in my study time.
That's
I
what I
always do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, you always gotta like I said, you gotta put
get an
yourself
understanding of it.
right to get a good understanding of it. You gotta really put yourself in the scriptures, and sometimes like you can't just read over stuff. You gotta actually like even with that story of Hannah, there's so much in it when you read it, and you read it how you read it in the spirit.
Reading this.
You know what I'm saying? And understand this is what's really going on. You know, and you gotta look at it how. Like when she was complaining, he was like, man, man, am I not better than you than 5 sons?
10.
Or 10 sons? Right? And then what happened right after that though? It said she started eating. So he is letting you know, like we just hear one little quote from that conversation. But it could have been a whole big conversation, man. And you gotta, man, look, man, come on. He had to lay it down on her, like, look, woman. But the way when you read it, you see how like he must have been smooth, man. Where she was like, you know what, you right, babe. And like she just was like, you know what, matter of fact, let me get something to eat. And just felt better. You know what I'm saying? So that's how you gotta read it. You gotta read it like in that sense, like, oh,
between the lines.
yeah. You know what I'm saying? You gotta read it like that, man. And see how look when you read it, you see she was so stressed out she couldn't eat.
She was hurt.
After he talked to her though, she was able to eat. You know what I'm saying?
So get right with your game, boy. So you can persuade your wife.
That's what it's about, man. You know. And you gotta have that sister that's willing to take that, not to take it, but like to absorb it. To absorb that, man. Sometimes, man, these women, man, they think everything a competition, man.
Yeah.
Even with you.
Oh
Be
yeah.
like, yo, it's not a competition. Like, we supposed to be in this together. And you want to make it into a competition. What the hell going on here?
They be